G'day and welcome to SPCs Unleashed. We are up to episode 21 of our second season, and today we are going to be unpacking the new ASPC or Advanced SPC certification. And for the first time ever, we're not actually an all-male crew. We've been graced by some extra wisdom. And it's fantastic to welcome our friend Cheryl Krupe to the show. Now, the prelude to this is that Cheryl is not here in her official capacity. You may know her as a member of the Framework team who has been doing amazing things for SAFE for the past few years, but she's actually just here as our friend. And my last memory of the ASPC and Cheryl was sitting talking to her as she said it was so fulfilling being able to just engage with creating this new learning experience last year. So it's great that she's able to join us tonight. Welcome, Cheryl.
I'm delighted to be here. And it is true that creating ASPC is it's a career highlight, one of the most joyful things I've done. So I'm glad to be here to talk about it. Thanks for having me.
It's not my show, it's Nico's. Nico, it's in your capable hands, mate.
Perfect. So good morning in America, good evening in Australia, good afternoon in Europe. It's really cool to have this time over many continents a show. And it's about Advanced SPC or ASPC or, our show is SPCs Unleashed. And now we have an official Advanced class. Let's talk about what to expect there and what it's all about, its advancedness. You have now your English as wished, Mark. Stefan, what is your true passion or special moment with ASPC, Advanced SPC?
Yeah, welcome. So when I hear the word advanced, I think about movement and about performance, right? And I love a good performance. Why? Being mean a bit, it sorts the wheat from the chaff.
Wow. Cheryl, you are, I would say, the main author or the main person who did the crime with the ASPC. No. What is your true passion in this environment?
Yeah, I can say my passion or my dream in writing this course is creating confident SPCs. To me, advanced means that you are confident in the face of some of the most sticky challenges in your transformation.
Cool. Mark, I give the ball to you.
So for me, it's, the reason we have SPCs Unleashed is actually about this question of the advanced SPC. Because this idea of there needs to be a follow-up to SPC, it's been running for years and years and years. And we began and we went, well, do something. And, why is it important? Because great SPCs create really healthy agility. And anything that creates really healthy agility, that's my special passion.
Cool. In my case, I did the class twice, once in a public setting and one in an in-house setting. And each time it was cool to observe some things. The one thing is, which I share with your passion, is seeing people advancing or seeing advanced people explaining what they have done and inspire other people. So the public class was really cool to see how they share their stories. And they were really cool stories. You could write blog articles or do even a show with the examples they said. So I really had a bunch of advanced people, SPCs all, and telling war stories, telling how they convince people, telling how they achieved things. And I met one of these participants 3 months later in person, and he has said, "Yeah, I tried this thing the other guy told me in my environment, and I was so happy with that." And another told me, the workshop that Mark Ricks did, I put some elements out of it because it's also part of the Advanced SPC class. And it gave me a powerful tool to address the people in my company. So it's really, my passion is seeing how people evolve, how they grow. And that's really a cool thing. And in the in-house class, I've seen something else also cool. A bunch of people realizing that you have different views on the same organization and realizing, I think it was the first time I had the feedback with, it's so nice not having so much slides in a training. And the other part of the feedback was the breaks were even more important than material because it discussed a lot about their own organization. So in my case, my passion, seeing companies growing, seeing the world becoming better, really was that what I've seen having this class only 2 times until now. So it was really cool.
Nice.
With that, let's kick off with our triggers and questions. And the first question I have prepared is, what do we expect from SPCs becoming advanced? This class is named Advanced SPC. What does advanced mean for us? And I would like to give it to Cheryl because you invented this class, or you started this class.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about how, well, we spent a lot of time talking about what advanced means and also where we were wanting to focus on creating that advanced capacity. So there's a lot of research behind this class. There was a survey of over 1,000 SPCs looking at what are the things that are, like, what are the sticky parts or the problems in their transformation that they're having trouble overcoming. And so what we looked at is most commonly identified areas where people were struggling, and what does moving past having knowledge about, the theory and the guidance to really being able to practice and apply and break through. So that's what we were looking for. The assumption in the course is that anything that's in implementing or sort of basic guidance, that's like the baseline. We're not teaching that. We're focusing in the areas where people are struggling and looking to level them up in order to be able to sort of practice and break through the barriers that they're facing.
Mm-hmm. But still, what makes them advanced? So how they can become advanced? So we know what the problems they have, but what makes them bigger?
One of the things that's really different about this course, and I added this up recently just to see for my own fortification. I think what makes it a difference in it being advanced is practice and mastery. What I added up is the amount of time in the class as a whole spent applying and practicing versus like listening and learning. It's 50%. And Nico, I think you talked about that a little earlier, that the class feels materially different than any other SAFe class. And I think it's because we spend so much time in scenario-based learning, literally practicing speaking, practicing advocating, practicing influencing, practicing solving problems. So the kind of mastery and confidence that comes from applying what we know to be true about agile ways of working is becoming advanced.
Mark.
Well, I'm watching Stefan get very excited, and while I was going to jump in, I think I've got to give way. Stefan, you're just holding your breath there.
It's interesting. I already like the discussion. Listening to Cheryl, she already answered some of my questions I had, because if I hear the term advanced, I look at it as a coin that has 2 sides, right? One side, what's the intention with this course? And I was, being economically lazy, I asked SAFe Copilot, what is advanced? And Copilot gave me some answers, and it said, okay, it's skill mastery. You already mentioned that, Cheryl, right? So the other one is practical application. How do you contextualize what you have learned? How do you map it into your context? The third one was blended learning. Yeah, we are there. We're probably talking about that. And the fourth one, which is probably the most crucial one for me, is leadership development. We are developing SPCs into something we call advanced, right? So, and the second part, or the other part of the coin for me, would be, what problems do we solve with a SPC? And it's probably quite a huge field, because you talked about those thousands of SPCs you asked. What are your problems you try to solve? You boiled it down to those different parts of the ASPC course. And I'm interested in more the side of what problems do we solve based on how we train SPCs coming from a starting point, going into probably different directions, which is a huge challenge for a course called ASPC, right?
Cheryl.
I can talk now, Nico. Okay. I want to give you a really a clear example to your point, Stefan. So one of the things that we hear from SPCs is that we struggle to gain the confidence of the corner office. We struggle to influence and engage leaders. And I'm thinking in every module, yes, in every module, there are activities and scenarios where you are literally practicing pitching, practicing advocating, practicing talking in role-based learning with leaders. So one of the things we're trying to do there is produce a low stakes environment where you can try these things in a real life like scenario, so that when you go back to your context and you're trying to speak with the leaders that you work with, that this is not the first time that these words come out of your mouth, and that you've had a chance to try it and get feedback and then try it again. So that's an example of an advanced concept solving a problem. I can't speak effectively to my executives. Using scenarios that are very, common in our field, and then developing that mastery, like practicing getting the words right, so that when I go do it myself, that I can feel confident doing it. Hopefully, that's a good example of what we were trying to do.
Mark,
It
your
opens
turn,
a
man.
few.
Yeah.
It opens a few more doors for further questions, which is good.
So I'm
Mark,
going
go
to jump
on.
on this because, like, when I think about what makes an SPC advanced, for me, like, there's so many different avenues for that, because are they advanced because they've got good change agent skills and they can mobilize effective change? Are they advanced because they're good trainers and it's a good experience when they get in front of the room teaching people? Are they advanced because they've got great book knowledge and they know all the theory, right? And I think if you looked at the SPC that's been around for nearly 15 years now, it was very focused on you've got good knowledge and didn't have a lot in terms of you're a great change agent or you should be inflicted on a room full of people for multiple days. And so for me, when I looked at the ASPC, it was, what's the balance of those questions that it's trying to address in terms of the shift of expertise? And I think perhaps the thing that I enjoyed most about it was that it oriented heavily towards being advanced as a change agent who can mobilize change.
Cool, because my next question to you, Mark, would have been, if you will be head of Advanced SPC, which flavor you would favor? So it's really the consulting, coaching part, the change agent part, and not the training part, right?
Yeah, look, I think the days when everybody thought of every SPC as a trainer, hopefully they're kind of been left behind. And, I've seen some train wrecks and I've heard about some train wrecks of people who should just never have been stood at the front of a room for two days teaching dozens of courses and what goes with that. But I think that world's shifted a little bit. And, what makes healthy agility, it's probably not down to your book knowledge and it's not down to your ability to teach. It's down to your ability to mobilize change.
Yeah, we have an expert certification that's focused on mastery and teaching. It's the SPCT. That's what the T is, teaching. Someone asked me about this class and where a lot of the ideas and content came from. And really, it's a distillation of my 15 years as a field change leader in many different companies. And so that really, you're right, that really is the bias, is unlocking our SPCs in terms of being able to drive and lead change. And I know we'll talk about the Learning Lab in a little bit because I see that that's one of our questions. But that's sort of a prime example of we're working through a scenario of the multi-level reality of a change leader, right? You're looking at the meta arc of how we're changing this organization. You're breaking down problems, choosing what order to tackle them in. That is change leadership at its core, making those trade-offs and chart that journey and bring thousands of people with.
Yeah, and I like that. What you just said, Cheryl, it's unlocking potential, right? And I probably can't be good in every field or every area. The question is, do I have a good base? Do I have basic knowledge, which I should have an SPC? But it's much more than regurgitating content or proven models or approaches. It's again, how do I become a good leader in this transformation? Because again, the overall topic or purpose is not implementing SAFe. It's how do you become an organization with a lot of good business agility? And that relates back to what Mark said, right? It's about the organization. How do we evolve over the time? How do I position myself as a change leader? And what is my 2 cents in that transformation journey?
What you haven't seen, dear audience, in the background, Mark tries to steer the conversation in a direction, and I decided to follow him. So, Stefan, can you tell a little bit more about the 4 models and which one is your favorite?
Yeah, I would say all the models make sense, but I would start with engaging leaders. Mark already brought that up when it comes to your where's your heart, right? It's with leadership, because transformation doesn't happen magically. It's not a one-piece thing, a copy-paste stuff. It's a lot of leadership, and engaging leaderships in general. Just second that with some of her words. How do we pitch? How do we make sure that leaders are on board? And being a leader as well as a change agent, engaging leaders for me is probably the most crucial topic, because everything else will follow. Transformation strategy, excelling LPM, and relentless improvement as the consecutive modules for me, it works. But engaging leaders, that's where my heart is.
Cheryl, I know you're a mom. If I ask you which of your 4 children you love most, which one is it? So the same question now. We have 4 models. Which one do you like most, or is your favorite one?
I love all 4 of those children equally. I knew you were going to ask that question, and I spent some time thinking, and I was like, maybe it's this one. No, it's the other. I love them all equally, and for different reasons. They each of them is geared towards cracking a problem that I know is very real for a lot of people. We try to be extremely creative and engaging in creating the learning experience. Thought a lot about how it would be for learners and participants, and tested in the field to be sure that these were, rich and fun and thought-provoking. And I love them all equally, truly.
Mark?
So what's running through my head is my wife, Kerry, has had this thing that she's always said, my favorite kid is the one who's closest to me at the time that I say it.
Oh.
So true. Yes.
And our new son-in-law, who wasn't yet our new son-in-law at the time, last Christmas, gave her a mug and very carefully moved to sit next to her as she opened it. And on the mug was like, my favorite child gave me this. Anyway.
That's awesome.
On more serious notes, for me, it was engaging leaders, and so brutally that I would happily have put the other 3 modules on the chopping room floor to make more space for the concepts in engaging leaders, because it really, for me, leans into areas that SAFE has been lacking on, and that lack has been felt.
Cheryl?
Can I ask a question? So which was your favorite part of engaging leaders? So it's 2 out of the 3 of you. Engaging leaders is your top pick. What did you love about it?
Look, for me, engaging leaders started to delve into, and I kind of almost hate this term, but it's the term, right? The soft skills. And understanding how to navigate. And I think for so much, if you want change, you've got to create safety for change. And sort of sensing the danger level, the safety level that people are feeling, and being able to chart your path through, being sensitive to what can be stretched and what can't be stretched at the moment, and developing that emotional awareness. I thought the module, and I hadn't read the book that you referenced on emotional intelligence, but I thought that little sequence on emotional intelligence was very strong. So that kind of depth ongoing, actually, it's not your ability to quote SAFE chapter and verse that will generate a good thing for your organization. It's your ability to create new conversations. Sorry, Stefan, go.
Yeah, let me jump in. We had so many episodes talking about leadership, and I remember Mark telling us a few times, senior leadership sometimes has a different agenda, sometimes really living in a different world as well, because they have the ultimate responsibility to lead the company and the enterprise into the future, right? So what are new business models? How do we get there? How do we have some capacity left to pave the way into the future? And if I look at this leadership or engaging leaders module 3, it talks about evaluate the impact of organizational culture on SAFE transformations. So it's a soft factor, right? Understand the physiology of emotional competence. Again, if you look at senior leadership, it's probably something pretty new for lots of SPCs and change agents. And then practice building rapport and influence with key leaders and stakeholders. Make it happen, make it stick. I'm still with module 3, engaging leaders.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I love best about this module. I think the most important thing about it is how it shifts the perspective, hopefully, of many change leaders to empathy about the executives that they're working with. And I, for the bulk of the last years that I worked in enterprise change leadership, I worked exclusively with leaders. I worked with hundreds of executives all over the world. And I came to this conviction that to engage them, you have to understand what they care about deeply and literally care deeply about that. Like
Yes.
they are never going to care about safe or agile or transformation in the way that we do, those who drive it. Their primary, and it's not because they're bad and wrong, it's because it's just not their focus. Their focus is growth, innovation, talent, things that relate to the business of the business. And to truly work effectively with them, we have to know what those things are and care about them equally. And I think about in the course of my career, early on in my Agile journey, Agile it was something we wanted them to care about, but they were in the does it work? Should I do it? Position, right? And so we were trying to understand and support them through that. Now it's a little different. Agile's in a different place in its life cycle. And it's more foundational, right? Like it is for a period, it was like, should we do it? Then it became like, oh my gosh, yes, we should do it because it's on the cover of HBR and every other thing. And then it was like, how do we? And now it's more of a foundational thing. You can't do without it. But in each of those situations, there are advantages and challenges to them advocating for Agile. And if you truly, truly, truly spend the time to understand and have empathy for their situation, you can build wonderful allies and relationships that are going to be able to create the circumstance where you can do the work that you want to do. So I feel like that position of empathy in that module is a vital stance change for many of our change leaders that I really, really hope that the course brings to the world.
So I got to jump
You
in
can
here.
tell I
Right?
love each of these children very much.
I'm really interested to see what happens to some of your other children as we point out some of their spots. But I'm curious, right? Because when I looked at this and I looked through all the material, I went, Nico is like, he's our systemic coaching guy. He's our soft skills guy. You know, he's going to join us on this choice. And then I looked at the notes. It's like, Nico's chosen the LPM stuff. What?
Tell us.
Yes, I can tell you why. So one important thing is the biggest impact was really on the model you've chosen. So after having these trainings, gave this training, and also had the ability to co-teach some parts together with Cheryl in the US time zone, the model had the greatest impact was really leadership. And I think there was also this slides telling about, I forgot the name of the phenomenon, but is when somebody is late, you always assume the bad things of those people. But when you are late, you always have a good reason. And just speak this out, make people realize, okay, why I'm in this way. So the whole empathy part was really an important part of this model. So the biggest impact, if I look at all the models, really had the engage leaders model. I've chosen LPM not because the others are not good enough or are not my favorites. I've chosen LPM because in the environment I am now, maybe it's the same discussion with your wife. At the moment, LPM is closer to me because I do a lot of LPM stuff, and this part helped me doing more discussions or better discussions with my clients. This helped me a lot, giving me a different language, giving me more chances to explain things. I know that the body of knowledge was there before the ASPC, and I knew it because Mark once pointed out to us, hey, there's a lot of work Eric has done together with Cheryl and co. And then I read this and I thought, oh, that's a cool thing. But this model now shows the hidden secret. There is a lot of ways you can structure portfolios, etc., etc. And that's why it's my favorite just to give them a little bit more light in this show because it's really a cool content. But yeah, as a father, I still love all my children. Different but the same.
The thing that ran through my head with excelling LPM was once upon a time, like, because I've taught every version of the SPC since it began. So I've seen the evolution. And once upon a time, there's a lot of content in the SPC, which is, we're going to teach this so you're aware it's available, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're going to spend half an hour running you through what's in Safe for Teams. We're going to spend half an hour running you through this. And it was really this this world of going, there is stuff that you can use. We haven't got time to teach it all to you, but we're going to make you aware of it. And it's like, that was a feeling I had quite a bit actually looking through the course. Was I looked and I went, okay, well, there's this really cool workshop Mark Ricks has made around, you know, mapping value inputs for your transformation strategy. And by the way, you're going to do enough in this course to make you curious and confident to go and open that toolkit. And when I looked at the LPM material, it was like, oh, yeah, but this is the portfolio toolkit that we talked about last week, right? And a lot of the LPM material was like, well, this is getting you conversant enough with it to go and actually pick up that other toolkit. Unfortunately, I think there might have been a timing issue because it doesn't actually say that in the slides yet, but I'm sure it will soon.
I think it right now. Yeah, because class preceded the the workshop. But that is you're exactly right. That module is the enablement, and in fact unlocks access to the workshop. That workshop is rich and complex, and we want people to have that content under their belt before they make a go at running that workshop.
Exactly. And for the listeners, just episode 20, we talked a whole hour about this workshop. So imagine the SPC training is a successful movie. What is ASPC?
So I'm gonna jump in first, right? And I'm sure, like, we've been waiting for the advanced SPC course for a long time in this world. Like somebody posted a 10-year reminder or something, the 10-year reminder of the first Safe Leadership Retreat. Phil Gardner posted that last week. And I'm pretty sure that at that event, we were talking about what advanced SPC should look like. So we've been waiting a long time. I don't think it's the Dark Knight. But it's certainly not the Phantom Menace.
I would have to be more conversant in movies to know what that means.
So if you think the Dark Knight,
explain that.
The Dark Knight was Heath Ledger as the Joker, unbelievably big, way bigger than Batman Begins that came before it. Right? Yeah. I think you're old enough with me, Cheryl, but maybe not a movie enough person to go, The Phantom Menace was the reboot of the Star Wars trilogy, and it was horrible. But a lot of people went because it was a reboot of the Star Wars trilogy.
Oh my God, that's funny.
So I think if you look at it and you go, I reckon SAR would have been pretty happy if they managed a Finding Dory. And again, if you're into movies, sequel to Finding Nemo. Not as big as Finding Nemo, but it did pretty well.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
Let me take over. Nico, I choose Monty Python's Life of Brian. Why? It's a cheeky movie. I like it. And what I like about the whole story is that Brian is subsequently mistaken for the Messiah, right? Whatever he says, what he does, they think he's the Messiah. So ASPC, we're not messiahs as change agents. People probably think we should be, but there's probably a big gap. And what I also like about this movie, there's a lot of outtakes and cuts. And one of the cuts is really cool. The three shepherds discussing sheep and completely missing the arrival of the angels heralding Jesus' birth, right? Probably a trap for a future ASPC, and I would even extend that to SPCTs and fellows discussing stuff at the wrong time and missing the obvious one, missing what's really important on the transformation journey.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Cheryl, if the SPC training is a successful movie, what is ASPC in your opinion?
Well, I'm going to proceed this by saying I don't really watch movies or do digital. So I had a very small library of movies to call from. And I'll say, Mark, I remember SPCT Day in 2019. I was one of the Ts that upvoted SPC2 or Advanced SPC at that time. So this has been long in coming. But the movie that I picked is a movie called Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Which is an amazing movie.
A small, it's a great, sweet little movie, especially if you love sushi. But it's about a man named Jiro who is a sushi master, like world famous sushi master. And it's about his dedication and his practice to the art of making extraordinary sushi. And what I just love the slow and steady practice leading to mastery. So mine's a more serious choice, but that's what I picked.
Cool, thank you.
You can also
Thank you.
comment that that's a successful movie in my world, but it is. So
It's an amazing movie.
it is. It's amazing.
Oh, great. This time I tried to make it much more open, so I didn't expect movie titles. So my answer goes in a different direction. For me, it felt like a long discussion about the sequel. So SPC is the movie. We want to have a sequel and a long discussion about it. And somebody called the SPC2. What's the next SPC, etc. And I expected, sorry for the German word, a Mitmachtheater, which some AI translated to participatory theater. I hope something like this exists in the English vocabulary. So a theater where you go with the people. And now it's something like a participatory theater. That's cool. And it's a series with 4 episodes. But it's a series that it's worthwhile to see and worthwhile to participate in it. So it's not the next movie, it's the series after the movie, in my case. Staying on this picture, when it's a series of 4 models, do you miss an episode? Do you want to have a next series? Let me ask you. So do you miss a topic, or do you want to add something? What is your opinion? And let's go with Mark, please.
So I'm going to jump in because one of the things I felt, and like if you've taught SAFe courses, and we've all taught a lot of SAFe courses, they're always time pressured. And I look and I go, oh, they're still very time pressured, right? Each one of those courses, like half a day for the module. There's so much good stuff in there. How do you do it in half a day? And so for me, it's probably not so much, there's something I missed. There's what would I give up to get more of? And I would give up the LPM module because I think that is the one for me. And it's not that it's not important, but it's the one that's about mechanical knowledge as opposed to change orientation. And I think, if you look at it and you go, there's that problem that says people need to teach LPM, they need to do enough learning to teach an LPM. The SPC course has never taught deeply on portfolio, let's face it. There needs to be something which is we're going to prepare you to teach portfolio stuff, and I don't think half a day is ever going to do justice to that. So I would love to have seen that LPM ejected to some other form of LPM enablement to make more space for the true change agency content.
So not add an episode, just remove one, but still the question is what to add if you remove something. It has to be 4 because nobody watches a 3-episode series.
I think there's just a lot of room for amplification in there. If I was adding one specifically, it would be, so my title for it, my buzz phrase for it would be, how do you sharpen the saw? Right? It's great. You're in a training room. You've created the black practice field. You've given people a safe space to play. It feels empowering. They go and try it and they fall flat on their face, right? I think the truth of this stuff is to go, in the training room, you can create a safe space for people to experience the potential power. But then how do you create something that supports them to step out into that? And I could literally just take a module to go, how are you going to establish the mechanisms that support you and grow you as you practice these techniques in the field, right? Are you going to put together, study and support groups? Are you going to create a Toastmasters group? I think something like that says, particularly if you're an internal LACE, right, and you've got a bunch of SPCs from an organisation, what are you deliberately doing to internalise those skills? That's what I want to see added into it. And I'd much rather see that than, another half-day scheme of portfolio management.
I've got a label for that. If you take something out, if you have to fill the void, I've got a label for that. What I miss, and I would call it, and we use it quite often in our courses, is the business agility value stream notion, right? which is huge. And only having one slide is probably not enough. So to second what you just said, Mark, is the business agility value stream, which for me is not per se a value stream. It's more a thinking module or a thinking model, how to become an organization with a high degree or a mature level of business agility. I would like to have that in this course somehow, maybe as a springboard or as a module or as a closing part. I don't know, because it opens a lot of doors and it helps us contextualize much better what a change agent should and could do. And relating back to what we already discussed, maybe some of the change agents, being ASPCs, are not that familiar or not that proficient with dealing with senior management, but they might be very helpful and do a very good job in another part of the BAVS, right?
Cheryl?
Am I next? My mind is popping off in so many different directions with these comments. I want to go back to something that Mark said about being able to go out into the field and apply these things. One thing that folks may be aware of is that there are several different options for how to deliver this course. And one of them is to deliver them sort of as we have conventionally and sort of like a, back-to-back days and doing it all at once, either in person or virtually. But a model that I really feel drawn to is teaching the modules with some space in between in a cohort. So, teaching module 1, having some sort of lapse time, a couple weeks or a month, and then doing it again. And I know, Nico, at least you have done that. But when I think about the course being delivered in that way, I imagine people going in the field and trying these things and then coming back and having a chance to talk with that cohort and with their instructor. And that's why I feel sort of naturally biased to that model, because I feel like the chance to go and try and then come back and debrief and maybe like get a little comfort or insight from your cohort could really help. Is that how you found it?
So in my case, I'm running an experiment with an on-site training. One is just 3 days in a row, and one is every afternoon. And at the moment, people book more the once in a row. Either do it remotely once a week, or do it once in a row. That's the moment. But the market is at least saying. I personally, when I teach a training, I prefer the one with the homework, giving you homework, giving the chance to participate, give you the chance to experiment, and then come back the next time and say to the people what you have achieved, to be really honest. But I would like to ask Mark again one thing. So can you give me a title on the thing? We have now a title from Stefan. The thing you are missing, what would be the headline or the training name or the model name? If you get rid of the LPM part, how would you name it so that Cheryl has a working title at least?
So I think, to be honest, I would go for Endless Thirst. I'm back in movie title land. Endless Thirst. And it probably comes back to that beginning question, what makes an SPC advanced? I think it's your thirst to learn, your thirst to grow, and the discipline with which you pursue it. And so, tongue-in-cheek, movie title name, Endless Thirst, right? What is the module about building great habits? And maybe, when I read Relentless Improvement, I thought about the improvement kata and the coaching kata, because I happen to personally love the improvement kata and the coaching kata as a mechanism for working with a group of people down a structured application path, right? But, what helps you to build habits of testing, experimenting, reflecting, sharing, seeking feedback, growing, internalizing? And it seems silly to say, well, you've got to teach it, but I think you've got to teach it because so many SPCs out there, they don't go and do that stuff, right? They get their certification, they go, now I'm certified. Mm-hmm. I successfully navigated that conversation in the training room. That was great.
Check. Yeah. So by the way, in my case, what I'm missing a little bit is the mentoring coaching aspect. Of course, Mark knows it by heart that I'm always putting the finger on this wand. When I look back, what made me better as a person, as a coach, was always a mentorship. Having somebody, a good relationship where I got mentored and vice versa. this always brought the both of us to the next level. And I would love to see some more of these elements in the training. If it's a separate model or more of the other models, I think this is a little bit missing, because I think for an advanced SPC, you should also be somebody who gives back. So not only I'm teaching, I'm consulting, I'm in my own bubble. You have to, in my opinion at least, you have to open up and challenge yourself too by helping other people and realizing, okay, I'm really in my own bubble, in my own country, in my whatever own is yours. So this part, in my opinion, makes you also big and great and more excellent than before. So and I would love to see something like that in the advanced SPC, so that you stay in a continuous learning, continuous education mode, just by mentoring somebody and being mentored by the same person back. But Mark inspired me to a completely new question, and sorry for that. You didn't have time to prepare for it. Is what not to add? So if somebody says, okay, we want to have a fifth model, or we have, I don't know, make it more valuable or whatever, the AS, what is something you think we should not add it at all? Who wants to start first?
I'm just suggest, right, because Cheryl's like watching as we talk about her babies here. Right? Why don't we give Cheryl a voice for a second? And if I think about what not to add, I'm sure there's 3 babies that she had to leave on the cutting room floor.
Actually, we identified these 4 pretty quickly. What not to add, things that are covered in other classes. You talked about training still. I think that's, I've been thinking more since you said that, and I remembered that only about 25% of SPCs teach. And so I think that's something not to add, because it's not the majority of this community. My mind more plays with what could be, and I know this is not this question, but like what could be part of this curriculum than to what not to add. Just really curious. I mean, in the development of this course, as with all of them, we're really listening to the community and trying to understand what are the problems and what do people need. So I really haven't really spent a lot of time on this question, but probably not how to become a great trainer, because I think we cover that elsewhere, and that's just not the majority of the SPCs.
You just killed my post-it. It was becoming a better trainer. So I +1 bingo
sorry,
from my
Nico.
side. No, that's perfect, because you had the chance to read it, because I just wrote it when I wrote the question.
Yeah.
So becoming a better trainer shouldn't be part of the ASPC, should be part of some other curriculum or whatever.
Yeah,
Stefan, your
that's what I
opinion?
think.
Yeah.
Well, listening to Mark before, and he said less how to and more having on a meta level this, how do you contextualize? How do you perceive the transformation world you're in? And I like the evolvement of the SAFe framework, right? We are moving away from the 7 core competencies to the 5 disciplines, and the disciplines include competencies, right? And the competencies don't start with how to solve something. They start with what kind of patterns do you see? What will you experience out there? And then deriving what could be the how to solve it. And I would say less how to, more again, how do you tie it back to, there's different spots I probably have to deep dive as a change agent. I have to get the knowledge, I have to paint the picture, and then bring it into the transformation journey.
Mark, from your side?
I don't know that I'd add much. Like, I think what just keeps running through my head is not mechanical stuff. You want mechanical agility, you've got Copilot.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you ask the next question, Mark? Because it was one of yours and I really loved it. So it's easier when you say it.
So as I went through it, right, and like here's the full disclosure, I'd been aware the ASPC had come out, and like every SAFe course, I would only go and do the enablement if I was needing to teach it soon. So I hadn't actually looked at it. And so I spent 2.5 hours going through all the workbooks and PDFs and things the other day. And I got to the lab and my head literally exploded, because I'm an experiential training guy, right? And I believe the best training is the training where there is no PowerPoint, where you're giving people an experience and probing them to see what's possible to learn. And so I read the Learning Lab and I went, wow. But then I went, but that's not how SAFE put training material together, right? Because this is the type of training approach that needs incredible facilitation skills to make it work really well. It's so brave of them. And I'm so excited to see them trying it. And I'm curious to see how it's happening and what people are experiencing with it. Because that idea that says, we've done 4 learnings and, you've done the usual things with these learnings, but now we're going to go and we're going to spend an entire time together on simulated experience and the learning that's possible there. Phenomenal. So exciting.
Yeah.
How's it working in practice?
So I can tell you my experience, how it was. In the public class, we ran exactly the example Cheryl and co had prepared, and was really a cool success, seeing how the theory comes together and together and together. In the private environment, we replaced the content because in the scenario, you're a SPC fresh in the new environment, and you have to do something, but they were all there for decades. Or let's say the SPC is there for 5 years, 8 years. So the scenario wasn't the wrong one, because you're not new in a company and you have to change something. You're there and stuck with the company and you have to unstuck. One of the favorite words also from Cheryl. So how to get unstuck with the things you learned. In the public class, it was cool because the people really took the material they had before. In the private environment, they struggle a little bit to not go too deep in their own stuff and forget what they have learned. But it's maybe because I changed the simulation. That was also a problem, because they were deep in their own. Oh, what's a nice word for shit? No, in their own troubles. Instead of remembering what they have learned, and then after some hints, they're starting also using the models and using the articles and using it. So it was in both parts a huge success, because they realized I wasn't there for 4 models and it was just for learning, it was for applying. So it was really a cool ending of both classes. Who wants next?
I'll go next. Just to answer Mark's question, so you asked, how's it going in terms of the teaching of the Learning Lab? And I can just give also, for folks who are listening, just a little overview. It is a fully experiential learning simulation. There's just a few slides that explain how to do it. And basically, it's a transformation story. And you are walking in as a new transformation leader. And you have to there's a number of challenges, and you have to choose your path through them. And then work through each. And in each, you create an asset that you can use later. There's no right answer. There are more optimal ways to work through it than others. That's basically what you get. And we tried to make it, again, very grounded in practice, and that it follows a method of, like, you assess a problem, you figure out how to remedy it, and then you employ what you've learned. So you can see, like, going back to my theme of practice. Mark, the majority of the questions that we get from trainers about this class are not about the Learning Lab. So, I mean, I hear from maybe some of the student feedback, like it's a lot. It's a lot of reading. I had a lot of fun writing what basically is primary sources, like, you use things like chats from town halls and virtual town halls and like primary data, just like you would as change leader in a real environment. So we've gotten feedback. It's a lot. It's a lot of content, a lot of reading. It's deep. But we've gotten some questions from facilitators, but not a ton. So I would use that as a sign that it's going pretty well, because we hear from our community of trainers. And in fact, we've already done one patch on the class because there were some things that needed to be fixed from a trainer perspective. So I hope that's a good indicator that it's going all right.
I'm surprised, Cheryl, that SPCs didn't come back regarding the Learning Lab, because I had a similar situation going through the trainer material like Mark. And not to blow my mind, I tried to ring fence it, and I asked an AI agent, what is a Learning Lab, right? And if you then, I tried to visualize it, and it came up with 5 distinctive activities or ways to work and they call it the methodology, the cycle. And if I look at that, I think learning labs, and if you are using that in other modules in the future, they will have a huge impact on how the concept of the different roles will be evolved over the time and how you learn it. Because the learning lab for me, and I'm looking forward to not only half a day or a day working with the people, doing some stuff even afterwards, if it's a public class or an in-house class, because it has so many implications, like how you approach work, how you develop your capabilities, because in some you will be good, some you will be pretty poor still. And then again, if we want this relentless improvement, it's about this learning culture, right? How do you move on after you get the label of an ASPC to stay advanced, to stay as a change agent who really establish some sustainable learning cultures? And I mean learning cultures, there's different learning cultures on different levels, different abstraction layers, you name it, right? And that's what I think there's a huge potential if we have that not only in the ASPC, but also in other classes in the future.
I want to answer that question you asked about how to stay advanced. And I think this is something that's very present in the Learning Lab also. It is evident from the beginning of the Learning Lab that no one person or very few people have the breadth of knowledge, experience, and skills to crack a full transformation. And one of the things that I love about it, students start by describing their skills and experience, what they know, to each other in their groups. So you know each other's super skills. And the purpose, I mean, the Learning Lab might look like a huge, rich, sticky transformation, and it is, but it is literally ticking through every single learning objective of the class. For every single learning objective of the class, you have an opportunity again to like assess based on what you learned, employ the tools that we gave you, and integrate in that way. But you learn in your group. You learn based on what others know. You present your lab report, and the other groups give you feedback. This is real life. And in fact, we heard this from the alpha cohort. Those weren't short-term relationships. When we asked them afterwards, to give us feedback, and they said, "Yeah, I learned things from my peers, and I developed connections that I will be using in the future." And I mean, how to continue to be advanced is to be part of this beautiful, freshy, creative, diversely expert community that can help solve these problems that we're all trying to break through in different industries, different types of companies, different countries. But I mean, I think that is part of the beauty of the Learning Lab.
It's great because it's really an important question. How do you stay advanced? How do you stay advanced as an ASPC? And this was the original idea of the Unleash SPCs, how to become a better SPC. And the question how to stay advanced as an ASPC is really a cool one. I like the idea of being in a core, being with a group of people together and continue your learning journey, but just say what you have done. And my tip's a similar one. Go publicly explain what you have done. Go speak at conferences or listen to conferences or go to meetups or read books, etc. The whole thing we've done the last 42 episodes, I think it's now, if we add all together, series 1 and series 2, it's exactly summarized here. Share and go and listen what others are saying. That will keep you advanced. Stefan.
Yeah, for me, it's three things that popped up. One is proficiency, right? The framework is evolving fast and in faster iterations. How do I stay proficient in knowing what I teach, knowing what I will use as structural elements? The second one is it will change my T-shaped consultancy, meaning I have to choose certain domains, certain areas where I'm pretty an I, and I have to know all the other ones to get to a T-shaped. So it's about where do I allocate my capacities in the future? And still something that really is driving me to study, to immerse into what is change leadership and what is business strategy, right? Because this is probably stuff that I need in my toolbox to stay advanced over the time.
Mark?
So it's interesting reflecting on this, right? And I think there are skills that are very durable and there are skills that are very time bound. And I think one of the things that, we've always in the agile world, we've talked about this, you've got to deal with VUCA, you've got to deal with a world that's changing faster and faster and faster. And if you look at the world of the last 2 years and the acceleration hockey stick of change that's happening to us, like I was reading something about, the recent drone attack in Russia. And the article was saying they're now basically on an 8-week technology cycle in warfare. Whatever technology advance you come up with will survive 8 weeks until they come up with a counter technology. So, you've got a wheel spinning there. Then, I was watching a keynote from an AI conference this morning, and the guy was talking about the new protocols, right? MCP and A2A and this thing that's happening as the industry starts to develop protocols. And he opens up and, slide number 2, he says, this paper here by these people published in April was a spectacular treatment, but of course that's a month old, so it's completely obsolete now. Right? That's a world we're moving in. And I think it's where every time you get into mechanical knowledge, the mechanical knowledge is going to change really, really fast. But there's that foundational knowledge and coming back to the kind of change agent knowledge, the people connection, the soft skill stuff that's durable regardless of how anything else changes. So you want to stay advanced, all right? Just sharpen those soft skills and be curious in the moment for the other things that will change faster than you can keep up with.
Mark, is this just your one takeaway, or you have a different one wrapping up the episode?
This is me. I'm double dipping.
Perfect. So if I summarize the whole hour for me, it's ASPC is the first step into advanced. It's just the first step. You're not advanced after it.
And those steps might be intimidating at the beginning, but always look on the bright side of life.
Sharon?
Mine is practice. It's the key to mastery. And it never ends.
Bingo. Thank you very much. Mark, fly us away.
Well, we are flying away. That brings us to a wrap. So normally at this point we'd say, well, this is what we're talking about next time. Our next episode, I can't remember if it's next week or if it's a couple of weeks away because I know we're starting to enter the crazy season. We're going to talk about compliance and audits. So it's a slight change of pace from the last hour. And Stefan is going to take us deep. But, if we're excited about portfolio management, we've got to get excited about compliance and audits. But speaking of excited, it was just so awesome to have you join us, Cheryl. Thank you.
A pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So adieu. We will see you next episode.